Some people earn more money than they ever did at a traditional job and still feel financially unstable, not because they're irresponsible, not because they're bad with money, but because unpredictable income changes the psychology of money. If your income moves in waves instead of straight lines, you know exactly what that feels like. One month looks great. Payments come in, projects are flowing, your bank account feels healthy, and for a moment, you relax. You think, okay, maybe things are finally stable. But then another month arrives. A client delays payment, a contract pauses, a project that seemed certain quietly disappears. Nothing dramatic happens, life doesn't collapse, but something inside you shifts. Your sense of financial stability starts to wobble. And that feeling can be surprisingly exhausting, because when your income is unpredictable, your brain never fully relaxes, even during the good months. That's the strange part. You might be earning well. You might even be saving money. From the outside, everything might look completely fine, but somewhere in the back of your mind, there's always a quiet thought waiting. What if next month isn't like this? That one question changes your entire relationship with money. It adds tension, a kind of background noise. You start checking your bank account more often. You hesitate before spending. You feel slightly anxious during slow months and oddly guilty during good ones. Over time, money stops feeling calm. It starts feeling unstable. And the frustrating part is that most financial advice doesn't really address this experience. Most advice assumes something very specific. It assumes that money arrives consistently, a paycheck every 2 weeks, a predictable salary every month, bills organized around that rhythm, budgets designed around that structure. But when your income is unpredictable, that rhythm simply doesn't exist. Your financial life doesn't feel like a schedule. It feels more like weather. Some months are sunny, some months are cloudy, and occasionally a financial storm appears with no warning. The mistake many people make is trying to force their financial life into systems designed for stability. Strict monthly budgets, perfect spending plans, rigid expectations. But unpredictable income rarely cooperates with rigid systems. And when those systems break, people often assume the problem is themselves. They think they lack discipline, or organization, or control. But in many cases, the real issue is much simpler. The system was never designed for their reality. So instead of trying to force stability where it doesn't naturally exist, the goal becomes something different. The goal becomes building calm inside unpredictability, not eliminating uncertainty, just making it easier to live with. And surprisingly, the first step isn't financial, it's psychological, because the way we think about money changes how stressful it feels. Most people think about money in monthly cycles, monthly bills, monthly budgets, monthly goals. But unpredictable income doesn't behave monthly. It behaves in seasons. There are busy seasons, quiet seasons, growth seasons, and sometimes survival seasons. Once you start seeing income this way, something begins to make more sense, because high-income months are no longer just normal months, they're building months. They're the moments where stability quietly gets constructed. And that stability usually comes from one simple shift: creating distance between earning and spending. One of the biggest reasons unpredictable income feels stressful is because money arrives and it immediately has somewhere to go. Rent, groceries, insurance, subscriptions, debt payments, lifestyle costs. There's almost no pause between money entering your life and money leaving it. Everything feels urgent. Everything feels immediate. But financial calm begins to appear when you slowly create space between those two moments. When money arrives, and it doesn't need to be used right away. That small gap changes everything. Because now your life isn't dependent on this month's performance. It's supported by stability that already exists. And when that happens, your relationship with money begins to soften. You stop checking your account constantly. You stop reacting emotionally to every fluctuation. You stop measuring your financial health based on one single month. Instead, money becomes quieter, more predictable, even if your income isn't. A friend of mine experienced this shift in a very real way. He worked as a freelance designer. Some months, he earned more than most full-time employees. Other months were painfully slow. And for years, his financial life felt like a roller coaster. During busy months, he felt successful. During quiet months, he felt like he was failing. But eventually, he made one change. He stopped organizing his life around monthly income. Instead, he started organizing it around stability. Whenever money came in, he separated it immediately. Part of it covered his basic living costs. Part of it went towards savings. And part of it simply sat there, waiting. That buffer slowly grew over time. At first, it was 1 month of expenses, then 2, eventually several months. And something interesting happened. His income didn't become predictable, but his life did. Slow months stopped feeling scary because those months were already supported by the past. That's the quiet power of financial buffers. They absorb volatility. They don't eliminate uncertainty. They simply make uncertainty easier to live with. There's also another layer of financial stress that people rarely talk about: identity. When income fluctuates, it can start to feel like your personal value fluctuates too. A strong month feels validating. You feel capable, successful, confident. But a weak month can feel different. You start questioning yourself. You wonder if you're falling behind. You question whether you're doing something wrong. But the reality is this: income volatility often has very little to do with personal worth. Markets change, clients shift priorities, projects pause. Sometimes timing alone changes everything. And when you attach your emotional stability to those external rhythms, life starts feeling unstable in deeper ways than just money. So part of building financial calm is learning to separate identity from income. You are not your last invoice. You are not your slowest month. And you are not your biggest payday either. Those numbers are temporary. They're data, not definitions. When that separation becomes clearer, the emotional pressure around money begins to fade. You stop chasing perfect months. You stop panicking during quiet ones. Instead, you focus on something more sustainable, designing systems that absorb volatility. Over time, those systems quietly change how money feels, because financial calm isn't really about numbers. It's about stability of experience. When money stops feeling dangerous, your thinking becomes clearer. You make slower decisions, smarter decisions. You start planning instead of reacting. Your income might still move in waves, but your life no longer does. And eventually, you realize something important. Financial freedom isn't always about earning more. Sometimes, it's simply about building a life that feels stable, even when your income isn't. And for many people, that quiet stability becomes the real form of wealth.